Hi, my name is Graham Smith, and I'm one of the authors that helped develop the learning approach to mathematics that is found in our textbook as well as the video you are about to experience. To learn more about our approach to learning mathematics, visit the web address that accompanies this video. Now, enjoy the video. Use equations to solve percent exercises. This video will help you translate a written statement into a percent equation and solve a percent equation. Translate a written statement into a percent equation. Let's start with some definitions. The standard form of a percent equation is, in words, the percent of the base is the amount. And as a math equation, it's going to be then the percent times the base equals the amount. Notice the word of indicates multiplication in this case, and the word is indicates our equal sign. Often percent exercises are written with the phrase, a percent of the base is the amount. Look for these words to help you substitute the values into the equation. Percent times base equals the amount. Now let's take a look at some examples that will help you understand how to translate a written statement into a percent equation. Example 1. Translate the written statement into a percent equation. What number is 13% of 130? So we want to think in the generalized form, a percent of the base is the amount. To enter the information into our equation here, percent times base equals amount. So let's start with a percent and the base. Remember, the percent is getting multiplied by the base. So here we have 13%, and of indicates multiplication. So we are multiplying 13% times 130. That means 130 is my base. So I'm going to take 13% times the base times 130 equals, and now the amount is the amount. In this case, we don't know what the amount is. It's right here. We're calling it what number. So we're going to leave that as a variable a. Now, one more step here. We don't actually do any calculations with a percent. We need to change this percent to a decimal. To change 13% to a decimal, all we need to do is move that decimal place 2 places to the left. So it starts here on the right, and we're going to move it 2 places. So we end up with this. 0.13 times 130 equals the amount. Example 2. Translate the written situation into a percent equation. 23% of the computer's price is $83. Okay, so we're thinking here a percent of the base. That's what we're looking for first. A percent of the base. So here we're taking 23% of the computer's price. So the computer's price here is going to be our base, and we don't know what that is. So we're going to have 23% of, which means multiplication, the computer's price. That's our base, and it's unknown. Equals, or is, $83. And so we can write 83 over here. That's going to be our amount. Just like before, we're not going to perform any calculations with 23%, so we want to change this to a decimal. So we would move the decimal 2 to the left. 1, 2, which means 0.23 times the base equals 83. Now it's time to check your understanding of translating a written statement into a percent equation. Hit pause on your video player and answer these guided practice questions. When you're done, hit play to see how you did. Question 1. Translate the written statement into a percent equation. What percent of 20 is 500? And again, we're thinking a percent of the base is the amount. So we're looking percent of the base. The percent is unknown. What percent? So we'll use a capital P for what percent. And then of 20, that means we're taking the percent times the base, which is going to be 20, is equals 500. Question 2. Translate the written situation into a percent equation. 63 pounds is 15% of the weight's limit. So let's first look again for percent of the base. So here is 15% of the weight limit. Well, we don't know what the weight limit is, so the base is going to be unknown here. So we're going to take 15% times our base, which is unknown. And when we do that, we're going to get the amount, which is 63 pounds. Now, one more step here. We need to change 15% into a decimal. So we would move that 2 to the left. And so we would get 0.15 times the base equals 63. Solve a percent exercise. When solving percent exercises, you will solve an equation in the form percent times base equals the amount. 2 out of the 3 variables will be known, and you will need to solve for the value of the third. You may have noticed in the examples and guided practice we just got done taking a look at, when we translated a written statement into a percent equation, we always had 2 of these pieces of information, 1 was unknown. In the next examples and guided practice, you're going to learn how to solve for that unknown. Now let's take a look at some examples that will help you understand how to solve a percent equation for an unknown value. Example 3. What percent of 15 is 75? So again, we're thinking a percent of the base is the amount. So it looks like our percent is unknown. What percent of 15? And then 15 is going to be our base. So we're going to have an unknown percent times 15, and that is going to be the amount. In this case, is going to be 75. So P is our unknown value. We want to isolate P to solve for it, which means we want to undo this multiplication of 15 on the left side to get P all by itself. So we're going to divide both sides by 15. Divide the left side by 15, divide the right side by 15. On the left side, common factors of 15 divide out and leave us with P. And on the right side, we have this 75 divided by 15. Now, one thing we're going to want to be careful of here is that we're solving for a percent. When we get done with this division over here on the right side, we're going to have a decimal number. We are still going to need to convert that decimal number into a percent. Before we do that, however, let's take a look at this division, 75 divided by 15. So we could factor this out, or we could do regular division. Let's take a look at regular division here. 15 into 75. 15 won't go into 7, but it will go into 75. I'm thinking probably 5 times, but let's double check. 5 times 15. 5 times 5 is 25. Carry the 2. 5 times 1 is 5 plus 2 is 75 right on the button. So we're going to get 5 there. That was 75. No remainder. So it looks like we're getting this answer of P equals 5. However, we still need to do one more step, which is to turn that back into a percent. So right now in the number 5, the decimal is on the right-hand side. To change from a decimal number, which it is right now, to a percent, we need to move that decimal 2 places to the right. So this is actually going to be P equals 500%. Let's go back to the original problem and make sure this makes sense now. So what percent of 15 is 75? Well, 75 is a larger number than 15. So if we're taking a percent of 15 and ending up with 75, we are going to have to take a very large percentage to start with 15 and then get to 75. So that answer of 500% does make sense. Let's take a look at example 4. Andrea paid a 20% tip for an $85 bill. What was the tip? Again, we're thinking percent of the base is the amount. We'll start with the percent and the base. So it looks like 20% of an 80 or for an $85 bill. So that means there is our percent, 20% of, in this case, 85. So we'll write that information in there. 20% times 85. In this case, we don't know the amount. Well, it looks like that A is already isolated over there on the right side, so all we have to do is perform the calculations on the left to answer this question. Before we do that, however, we are going to have to turn this 20% into a decimal. So we would move the decimal 2 places to the left, and we're going to get 0.20 times 85 equals the amount. And so now we need to do some calculations here. 0.20 times 85. So let's come over here. 85 times 0.20. So we get 0, 0. Well, we go through and multiply by 2. 2 times 5 is 10. Carry the 1. 2 times 8 is 16 plus 1 is 17. Add that up. We get 0, 0, 7, 1. In our problem, we had 2 decimal places here, so we need 2 decimal places in the answer. So it looks like our amount then is $17. And if we look at that, that's a 20% tip on an $85 bill. $17 seems reasonable. Now it's time to check your understanding of solving for an unknown value in a percent equation. Hit pause on your video player and answer these guided practice questions. When you're done, hit play to see how you did. Question 3. 12 is 80% of what number? Well, the first thing we want to think of is a percent of the base is the amount. And so we have 80% of what number? So it looks like we're going to have 80% is our percent, and what number, that's going to be our base. So that's going to be unknown, is, in this case, 12. So we need to solve for b, but before we do that, let's take this percent and write it as a decimal. So the decimal starts on the right in 80. We're going to move it 2 places to the left. So it's going to be 0.80 times b equals 12. Now we want to get the variable b all alone, which means we need to get rid of or undo this multiplication by 0.80. So to do that, we're going to divide both sides by 0.80. Divide the left side by 0.80. Divide the right side by 0.80. Here are common factors of 0.80 divide out and leave us with just b. On the right side now we need to do some calculations. So it looks like we're going to take 12 and we're going to divide it. Now 0.80 is the same as 0.8, so I'm going to just divide by 0.8. Now we don't want to divide by a decimal number, and notice we have 0.8 out front, so we're going to move this decimal 1 place to the right. Since we move this decimal on the outside 1 place to the right, we're going to do the same thing with the decimal on the inside. So when I rewrite this problem, really what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing 8 into 120. There's our decimal. All right, let's take a look at this division. 8 won't go into 1, but will go into 12 one time. We subtract, we get 4. Bring down the 0. 8 goes into 40 5 times. So it looks like our base here is 15. Now let's take a look. If we take 80% of 15 and end up with 12, that seems reasonable. Question 4. Armando owed a friend $68. If Armando paid his friend $17, what percent of his debt did he repay? So again, let's think percent of the base. So let's see. Armando owed his friend. If he paid his friend $17, what percent of his debt did he repay? So here we have percent of his debt. That's the percent in the base. So our percent is unknown, and we want to multiply that times his debt. Well, what was his debt? That's listed way back here. That was $68. So we want to take a percent times 68. And when we get done taking that percent, we're going to end up with the amount he paid, which was $17. Okay, so we're trying to solve for p there. We need to get rid of this multiplication by 68. So we would divide both sides by 68. On the left side, it's very easy. Common factors of 68 divide out and leave us with p. Right side, we got to do some division. 68 going into 17. Here's our decimal in 17. We're going to have to add some zeros here for this division to work. So let's take a look. 68 will not go into 1. It will not go into 7. But it will go into 170. So 170 I'm thinking 2 times. Let's go off on some scratch work over here on the left. So 68 times 2. 2 times 8 is 16. Carry the 1. 2 times 6 is 12. Plus 1 is 136. So we get 136. Subtracting that, we'll borrow from the 7, which makes it a 6. That's a 10. 10 minus 6 is 4. 6 minus 3 is 3. So we get 3, 4. Now I would bring down the next 0. And now I'm going to go 68 into 340. Maybe 5 times? Let's check it out. 68 times 5. 5 times 8 is 40. Carry the 4. 5 times 6 is 30. Plus 4 is 34. Oh, exactly. So it goes in there 5 times. And that was 340. So we're done. So it looks like we get 0.25. Now that's not our final answer because we need to write that decimal number which we have as a percent. So that is going to be 25%. So Armando has paid his friend 25% of his debt. If you found this video helpful, I encourage you to check out our other videos that we have on YouTube, or visit the web address that accompanies this video to learn more about our approach to learning mathematics.